Yo, what's up? So, everything I'm gonna say is gonna be straight from my mind. I have wrote down nothing. There's no script for this, none of that. This is all me speaking from experience as well as how I feel about the game at the moment. So, without further ado, I'm gonna start explaining why I haven't been playing Daybreak 2 the past few weeks, or even the past month almost, because I haven't posted a video in about almost 4 weeks now, and there's a reason for that. As most of you know, I have been enjoying Violence District a lot. I've been enjoying the game a lot recently, and it's what I've been posting, as well as a little bit of Carnival Hunt, which I also enjoyed as well during the alpha. But these games have been keeping me entertained for quite a while, and they're both games that I have been enjoying a lot. Carnival Hunt Access is over, but Violence District mainly is the game that I have been playing and enjoying a lot of at the moment. And it's an asymmetrical horror game that is just overall fun to play, and there's so many fun things you can do to mess around sometimes here and there. But it's a game that I have been playing because it's a game that I actually get somewhat interaction with the killer, as well as playing the killer in the game doesn't feel miserable as well. The issue with Daybreak 2 is that playing Survivor feels way more easier than it does playing killer. I'm saying that right now, as somebody who has over 2.5 years, actually almost 3 years of experience with this game now. I can literally say right now that this game is Survivor sided. And I know that might trigger some people, but I'm saying this right now. The game is Survivor sided heavily because killers have been getting punished severely every other update sometimes, whether it be a nerf to a speed, nerf to an ability, or just a nerf in general to their overall kit. There are currently 63 survivors and 25 killers. Huge difference, right? But that's not the case I'm trying to explain. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of the survivors in this game do similar things to each other, like ability-wise. For example, I'll give you a great example. Dakari, Millicent, and Barrett. What do they all have in common? They're all able to heal survivors without needing to go up to them using their own, healing and whatnot, right? Now, the difference between all of them is that one has a ranged heal that can heal from far away, that can shoot. Another one has a somewhat of a ranged shield as well, but can heal through walls, but it's a slower, heal. And the third one has a drone that can be destroyed easily and basically almost be kind of useless most of the time, I feel like. I don't know, I feel like Barrett's ability is kind of not the greatest, I'll be honest. So, with that in mind though, what I'm seeing is that a lot of the ideas, especially with the survivors, are starting to kind of feel the same to each other, I mean, I can go and give other examples as to what I mean, and it's especially prevalent with support characters because a lot of the supports have to fight for each other in this game for their ability to work. Like, you have Daejung needing his stacks, you have Emil who also needs a stack for a revive, you also have Evelyn who can help survivors by reviving them as well. Like, there's a lot of things that kind of contradict each other. There's a lot of survivor perks / abilities that just kind of, they have to fight each other for it. You know what I mean? And that's not really a great thing in my opinion, but I can see why they've been trying to add different styles of abilities and whatnot. And to be fair, they are pretty cool. Some of them are pretty cool, but some of them are not really the greatest, As I mentioned earlier, Barrett's medic drone, it's cool, it looks cool, but it gets destroyed so easily by the killer that, I mean, it's practically not really the greatest support, in my opinion, right? Of course, you have other supports that are not really the greatest either, like Daejung, in my opinion, which, that's my hot take. I'm gonna say this now. Him as a support is not the greatest. He's just a looper. No, that man is just a looper rather than a support. I'm saying that straightforward. That man is a straight looper. Don't care what anyone says. I think most people can agree. 9 stamina is ridiculous for a support. I don't think anybody needs that much stamina. On top of that, you know what? I want to get on the topic of loopers. Loopers in this game are ridiculously powerful. I can say that for a fact. Because not only do you not almost run out of stamina most of the time, because you regain it fast and you don't lose it fast, you also are faster than the killer 9 times out of 10, which should never be the case. Why does a survivor have to be faster than the killer for a very long time? That shouldn't be the case ever, right? And this is why a lot of people like me, who are, have been playing this game for a long time, avoid playing the looping class, because it is the most absolute boring experience you'll ever play. And I'm saying that right now, because if you play a looper class and you're at a very high level and you've played this game long enough, you know that it is just a cakewalk, because the killer can't do anything. They just only have a base set speed, and you basically have the ability to walk and then run faster away from them and gain so much distance, right? A great example is Elizabeth, who is a 9 speed and 8 stamina character. You can practically never catch up to this girl whatsoever. I don't know in what universe a survivor is ever going to be this fast against any killer, but I know this is like obviously not a real universe, right? The Daybreak universe is whatever, right? It's you can be whatever, but there is no reason a survivor should be this fast and be able to outrun a killer for this long. Like, you can see in the background that I'm showing how much faster I'm gaining my stamina because of how much speed I have and how much distance I am able to just get away from this ghost, And so the looper class just feels like a very, very powerful class that can just be abused in such a way that like it is actually unreal. I went down because they had like high ping, but still, you saw how long I was literally just circling around the area without needing to vault. And so I still find that to be absolutely ridiculous. And bringing on to the topic of loopers still, I want to talk about the ones that are able to stun you. The stun loopers are the ones that are also just annoying to try and chase. Almost literally impossible half the time if they know how to use their ability. And these are the reasons why like the killer class feels so underpowered in this game. Because you can barely get any decent chase without it having to last almost 180 seconds, like 2 minutes, until you're able to catch up to them, at least, or if they make a mistake. Like, I find that to be so boring. Like, and this is why genlocking has been the thing for the longest time for killers, because chasing in this game is just almost not worth it half the time. Unless you're playing like Empress maybe, or like Slasher, even they have their counter still, but like even then, genlocking is the only playstyle killers have in this game, because if they try and chase, then it's basically game over, because if you consistently chase even like a gen rusher who knows how to conserve stamina, then it's like game over for you. Like, if the whole lobby knows how to use stamina, good luck trying to catch up to anybody whatsoever. Speaking of loopers and whatnot, another thing I want to get on about is stamina teching. Now, if you don't know what stamina teching is, simply put, it's basically however much stamina you have and you use, at some threshold point, it'll regain faster. For example, if I have 8 stamina and I only use about like 30, so if I go down to like 70 to 75 stamina, my stamina will recharge faster than it normally would if I were to use like 40, 50, or 20. You'll notice that whenever you start doing it more and more and you get used to it. And I'll link a video to explain it better than I will, because I'm not great at explaining things, I can be honest about that. Essentially, whenever you think someone's about to run out of stamina, they don't, and they somehow have more stamina, which is why some killers are always ask themselves, why does this person have so much stamina? Especially a gen rusher, of course, because gen rushers can do this as well. And it throws a lot of killers off because, number one, you should not be having this much extra stamina, what it feels like. And number two, it shouldn't be a thing in the game in the first place, right? Which is why I'm glad that in this upcoming recode, that's going to be solved, at least from what I've heard, right? I've heard that there's going to be a base 3-second startup across the board for every character for whenever they use stamina after they run, basically, which I'm hoping for because it is literally a huge issue once you know how it works. Am I saying stamina tech is really broken? Yes and no, right? There are certain killers that can ignore it, of course, right? But still, I still feel like this shouldn't even be in the game, and it shouldn't be this like widely like used. I'm gonna say this right now, because what ends up happening is it just makes survivors even more invincible, almost like they can just run forever. At the same time, it's like it shouldn't even be that way, right? So why is it that these survivors are able to run longer and be able to conserve stamina for what feels like forever? It's because of this stamina tech, right? Which is why I'm hoping at least it gets, get rid of in the upcoming recode, which is why I still have hope for this game, but I just hope that it resolves a lot of the issues it had, especially in this version of the game, Daybreak 2, because it really is starting to become really, really boring to just chase somebody and you realize that they are just using stamina tech and you're like, oh, well, especially as a looper, you're just like, oh, well, I can't really do much, right? They're never going to run out of stamina. They regain it fast and they're faster. What can you do as a killer, right? You could, play slasher, of course, but if you miss 60 seconds, you have to wait. And, that's just not really worth the time, honestly. Now let's talk about loops. The loops in this game are very, very strong once you know how they work and once you know how to combine. I've mentioned earlier that if you know how to stamina tech and whatnot, you can basically do everything forever, right? You can be in chase forever, you can do all that. So this literally, combine that with the loops that are literally really broken and infinitable, then congratulations, you have a recipe for never getting down. And so it really sucks that most of the loops in Daybreak 2 can be just absolutely abused and can be used as an infinite, because all of their loops are super safe, right? There's no 50-50 loops, there's barely any. And most of the time, a lot of the loops that you think are not safe, you can turn them into safe, right? You can notice that a lot of the loops in this game are very, very you cannot do anything as a killer almost. You can barely mind game. You can literally see the killer through it's either a fence or anything like that, right? So it makes things harder, and it just makes things so much more difficult as a killer whenever you're just trying to chase this person, and then they arrive at a loop that is just super powerful and strong, and you can't do much about it unless you're an anti-chase, like I said, or you play Genlock, right? Which is why, like I said earlier, Genlocking is the way that people play in this game. And that is not fun, even for me. I'd rather chase somebody and try to get them down than having to just consistently Genlock every single time I'm killer. That gets very boring. It gets boring for other players in the lobby that also did nothing wrong, right? Probably they're new to the game most likely, or they're just playing casually and they're up against this killer who is just only going back and forth between generators and they're just literally patrolling and whatnot. I'd find that gameplay interaction to be so not fun, and I'm sure other people don't find it to be fun, and they'd rather be chased by the killer, or they'd rather at least have a chance to see the killer and have them follow them for just a second, because nobody wants to sit in a match doing generators over and over while the killer is just kicking it and going back and kicking it and going back. And so it just creates this gameplay loop that is not fun for both sides whatsoever, right? It's worse if you're a looper, This is why I said the looping class has its flaws, right? If you are going against somebody who's just kicking gens back and forth, you're going to be on that generator for God knows how long because you have such low repair stats. Now, if you're a gen rusher, you won't have this issue. It's still annoying, but it won't be a huge issue as loopers have it, because let me tell you this now, a lot of people play loopers in this game, right? So if you are up against a full team of loopers and you're a Genlocker, congratulations, you are going to earn yourself a basically free win because they're all gonna have no no repair stats whatsoever. They're gonna all have like 5 or below. So that's why I don't like this playstyle of just genlocking either. It makes it fun for not both sides, and it also just makes it very boring as like just a whole match in general. Which is why I always, whenever I go against somebody who's genlocking as killer, I'm like, I understand why. It's very much understandable, but it is just so boring. Even whenever I do it, I'm just like, this is not fun, right? So I at least like it whenever people try and chase. But like I said earlier, chasing this game is sometimes a bit harder than it is. So I mean, hey, take that with what you want. Continuing about loops earlier though, literally almost every map has an infinite loop that can just be used and literally abused so much. It's actually insane. Shifty Station, they tried fixing the whole downstairs loop thing, but it's still a thing. It's still an infinite, right? Like most of these fixes that they said they did with like the loops and whatnot, they're still being like infinites because the looping class or anybody can just still abuse it because it's not really like a huge nerf, right? Most of the time it's just like they got rid of a wall, but then they forget that vault there is still safe because there's another vault nearby. Because there's so many, like, especially an example I can give right now is Shifty, right? Shifty Station is a map that they have tried nerfing a lot with these vaults, but it's still a map that is still considered by a lot of people to be literally a looper's heaven, because a gen rusher, undetectable, anybody can just literally infinite loop on this map. I feel like every vault in this map is basically safe, especially the train ones, and the middle one, the top middle vault that they've tried nerfing, is still so strong. Like, I don't know why it's hard to try and at least move some vaults farther away from each other, or try and at least get some vaults like out of the way, like get rid of like some of these vaults that are unnecessary, because so many of these vaults that they have tried nerfing and they've tried newing, they are still able to be abused by like a lot of other players, and people have found a way around it, which is why you notice that a lot of killers on Shifty will just resort to genlocking or using slasher, right? Which, I mean, it makes sense, right? But still, it's still not great for like gameplay wise whatsoever. I feel like it gets repetitive, it gets boring, and it shouldn't be that way. Different killers should be used, and it shouldn't have to be a specific killer that is only good on that map, right? Let me give you an example of that as well. Stalker is only good on like 2 to 3 maps, and every other map they're not really great. And I find that to be so bad. I feel bad for anybody who mains Stalker. Hey, if you manage to make her work, that's great. But like on your average decent to like high level lobby, or just even decent players, right? You don't even have to play this game every day, who are aware and look around, you're basically in trouble. Because like maps like Purgeton are terrible for her. Another map example is St. Anne's. St. Anne's is a terrible map for her as well. There's so many other examples I can go into, but what I'm saying is that I feel like there should be more killers used than just a specific type for a specific map. It sucks that it's like that right now, and it's probably going to be like that for quite a long time, or quite a while longer, until they make newer maps. But I hope that in the future map releases they at least somewhat acknowledge some of the other killers' powers. But as it stands, you're probably going to be going against a lot of genlockers and a lot of anti-chase killers, which are going to be the same, like Slasher, Android, and Void Skulk and whatnot. So, I mean, that's how it is right now, at least. So, we'll see how it changes, hopefully, in the future. Now, let's talk about the killer abilities in this game. Now, I will say, some of them are quite literally annoying to go against, and some of them aren't really. For example, I know a lot of people hate Slasher. I don't know why, but there's people say he doesn't require skill. I've had arguments with people saying he doesn't require skill. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Right? All you literally have to do is crouch most of the time, or dodge. The knife size is like, the knife hitbox is the size of a pebble. So if they even miss, or if they even aim at you, it goes over your head sometimes because of how literally tiny the hitbox is for that knife throw. So there's that. Second of all, the killer cooldowns are extraordinarily long. Like, I can give a great example. Why is Idol's 2-second detection 2 seconds, 90 seconds on cooldown? Why? Who thought of that? That should not be a thing. You know, I think that the killer role should have at least somewhat lower cooldowns, because there's no reason for them to have such long and high cooldowns, you know? I just don't like how high the cooldowns are in this game for killers, because it makes things so tedious and makes literally playing killer role like you have to micromanage almost. And at least from my point of view, if you're trying to win, if you're not, cool, whatever, right? But I feel like even detection, right? Even detecting should not be like 80 to 90 seconds long, man. It really shouldn't. I at least think it should be like, that should be at least 60 to 70 seconds. That's understandable, that is very understandable. It makes, more sense, I feel like. An example of this that I find as well, another one, is the Night Countess. She went from being very, very, very broken in the PTB, right, when she was first being tested out by players. And so they nerfed her a bit because in her first version, right, her radius, her bubble was big. You were frozen in there for like every 0.1 second, and she was also faster as well. And people found that to be frustrating. Granted, I will say I didn't play much of it, but when I did go against her and see how she plays, I was like, okay, this might be a little much. So maybe let's hope they nerf her in like the right way. So they did. What they did was they reduced her terror radius to 6, which terror radius, I didn't find her terror radius to be that much of an issue, but okay. And then they made her ability, her orb radius, from 18 to 10, right? And then after that, they nerfed the stack. They nerfed her needing to be more stacks, I think, right? No, yeah, they made it so where you need more stacks to teleport with her active, which at the time was still instant, right? Second nerf they did was after using her instant teleport on a vault, there was 1.25 seconds of breathing room for the survivors, which, cool, whatever, I guess, right? And then they also made it so that when you're in the bubble, it at least froze you every 0.25 seconds instead of what felt like 0.1 second, right? And then they nerfed her, they buffed her orb radius again from 10 to 15, making it bigger. And then they nerfed her again in the most unnecessary way, where her passive now needed 40 stacks instead of 20. And that made her not be able to use her teleport more, right? Okay, that's questionable. And then they did something that I don't know why they did, right? They made it so that her teleport radius went from 42 to 20. They slightly increased her orb size, whatever, right? And then they even made it so that you need more stacks to use her passive. And they also added a teleport sound effect. Like, you see what I mean, right? They made this killer go from being absolutely broken to absolutely not even good to use. I'm going to say this now. It is actually surprising to see like the killer just being literally like stripped away from their power to them being like almost useless. Their passive is literally not worth using most of the time because you then have to hold instead of instantly press a button now. And so these killer abilities, these killers should not be getting like nerfed this hard. And certain killers should not feel like they have to rely on just mainly their ability, The People's Hero has been getting buffs. That's cool. That's good. So then why is Night Countess not getting some sort of any buff whatsoever? It's just like, it makes no sense. And certain killers should also be receiving more attention as well. I haven't seen much of a werewolf buff in a while. Granted, they made it so where even after you get stunned while in your rage, it doesn't go down the timer, but like still gets countered easily by vaults and stuff because it's unfortunate, right? Big maps, whatever. Also he has a long cooldown of 90 seconds, 80 or 90 seconds, I don't know, of his werewolf rage, which is extraordinarily long and is the reason why I think there's not a lot of werewolf players, because his ability gets countered easily. And he also has a long cooldown to use his active. A killer active should not be on a long cooldown. It should be used as much as they can for the opportunity. You know, Violence District has it to where these killer cooldowns abilities aren't that long. If in anything, they're pretty short, right? And it feels like makes the killer role more fun to play. Meanwhile, I'm playing Daybreak and I'm having to manage how to use my ability, because if I use it, well then I have to wait over a minute and a half to use the killer ability, which should not be the case. You know, the killer ability should be fun to use. You should be able to use their ability as much as you can and basically go and terrorize these survivors, right? So I feel that cooldown should be reduced to at least, I don't know, maybe 60 seconds, 50 seconds, I don't know, because it shouldn't be that way. And I just don't like how most of these killer ability cooldowns are so extraordinarily long, and I don't like it how so many killers have been getting nerfed, right? And a lot of these survivors are getting buffs. There are so many more things I can go on and say, but I don't want to make this super long, and I want to say this now. I still have, a likeness for the game, right? I don't hate the game. I just wish for it to be better in this upcoming recode, and I'll be back to it pretty soon once the recode happens. And I know that it's going to be in testing soon and whatnot, but for now, I won't be really playing the game. I won't be streaming it because I've done everything almost you can, and it's just not really fun to kind of do the same loops, do the same this and that. And I've played the game long enough to know how everything works, and that's why I've been posting a lot of Violence District. And like I said, this is no hate to the game whatsoever, or to the community. I'm just giving you my take and how much, ideas and passion I have for this game. It's what blew up my channel. It is what has made me where I am right now, and I'll forever, admire that. The team behind it, the voice actors, I should say, are all amazing people as well. And shout out to Haru for making these amazing cosmetics, And everything I have said is just because of how much passion I've had for the game for so long now. I just want to see it in a better state, and I want to see it grow. Now, I do know that they've mentioned that they don't really want the game to be as big or super big, but, I'd rather see the game at least be somewhat decently active, have at least 1,000 people playing, because as it stands, there are currently only 200 to 500 people playing the game, and, I mean, that's cool, but I wish there was more, and I hope that the community grows as well. I have said what I want to say in this video, and I know I'm probably gonna get maybe some hate, maybe I won't, who knows, but I do know that people will have their critiques. But if you want to share your opinions on how the game is right now, put it in the comments below. I'm not going to delete any comments. I will pin one that I really like, and I'll heart as many opinions as I can, because I know everyone has their own opinions, and some people still enjoy the game and some people don't. So I mean, post whatever you want, say what you want, and I'll surely be reading it, and I'll respect your opinion on how the game is. But this is solely what my opinion is on the whole entire game at the moment, and I'm hoping that once Brenda releases this recode for testing, it really fixes a lot of the issues of the game that it has. I'm really hoping, And so with that all being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed me sharing my opinion on why I think the state of Daybreak 2 right now is kind of just in the middle, kind of just not really, it's just kind of stale. Anyways, peace out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.